Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Lawyers in the Making podcast. I'm your host, as always, Nate Crespo, and today we have another incredible guest. He's a 3L at Albany Law and currently works as a legal intern at Girvin and Ferlazzo. He has held past positions as a legal intern at Brown and Winrob and as a summer law clerk for the Northern District of New York for Judge Ann M. Nardacci. Excited to have him on the podcast today, Mr. Abe Frangie. Welcome to the podcast. How are we doing today? I hope I said your last name right.
You did, Nate. Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Absolutely. I am glad to have you here today as well. Now, before we get started, Abe, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a somewhat Albany native. I grew up around Albany. I went to school for undergrad at U Albany, and then obviously I'm here for law school at Albany Law. So I've been around the capital region for the better part of 25 years. Had a lot of weird jobs and a lot of different career paths that I've started and then abandoned, and then for whatever reason, I'm sure we'll dive into. I've ended up in law school, and I'm going to graduate in 5 months, which is totally terrifying. But that's where we're at.
Well, I mean, before we get started, I'm glad to have an Albany native here. I have only been here for 3 years of my life, not 25, unfortunately. But I do love Albany. I love it a lot. We were talking, me and Abe, before the podcast, we're talking about the weather. It's not great outside, but it could be worse. I'm seeing all the videos from like the Midwest and all the snowstorms and all that stuff. So we don't have that. It's just really cold. But graduated from UAlbany. I go to UAlbany myself. I'm a proud Great Dane. I hope you are as well. Uh, but you had majored in Homeland Security, terrorism, and counterterrorism ops. Now, from there, why did you decide to switch tracks and go to law school? Can you describe, after graduation, what was sort of your mindset?
Yeah, so I graduated in 20. There was something small that was bogging down the rest of the world in 2020. Um, and so, for whatever reason, I ended up never going into counterterrorism. I never went into Homeland Security. I never went into any of the scary three-letter agencies. Um, I don't know what it was. After 3.5 years, I go, you know what? This just isn't my thing. It's not what I want to do, which is very surprising because it was kind of my career path my whole life. At first, I wanted to do forensics. I got really into that. And then I wanted to go into law enforcement. And then I wanted to go into counterterrorism. And then I wanted to go into emergency response. So I've had a whole bunch of weird uh, side goals, I guess. But it was always kind of going towards that main Homeland Security track. And then um, I figured out during college that I was really good at writing and I was really good at arguing and speaking. And I had way more fun doing debates and writing and arguing and speaking than I would have ever had doing counterterrorism, desk analysis. Um, while I still find that stuff really interesting, and part of me kind of wishes I did it, I like debating. I like speaking. I like writing. Um, it's that's my sport. I'm sure we'll get into moot court momentarily. You've allowed me, graciously allowed me to plug the moot court program that I'm fortunate to run at the law school. That's my speed. So naturally, you put all those sort of things together, and it pushes you into a law field. And for whatever reason, I took the LSAT and then wound up here.
Yeah, I think it's very important for people to hear out there to play to your strengths because clearly
Yeah.
you found that your strength was arguing, debating, writing, and from there you sort of found the path. What I have to ask though is were there any I'm currently at UAlbany and I know we have a ton of organizations on campus that have to do with that. Did you explore any of those organizations?
Yeah, I did. I was in. a couple of the political debate societies or whatever. I don't remember what they're called. Um, so I did that for a while, and we did a bunch of debates and did a bunch of speaking sort of things and that sort of stuff. We did policy debates. Um, so I did that from like my second year, I think, all the way pretty much to when I graduated. And those were always a ton of fun. And I would work with whoever, came to debate, and we would have long strategy meetings in the library and figure out what our debate strategy was for whatever the topic was that we got assigned. So a lot of that stuff was fun to do, and I didn't really think of myself as a public speaker. Um, I didn't really think of myself as a performer, but that's what it is. That's what if you go into litigation, it's performance art. You're putting on a show for the jury. You're putting on a show for the judge. It's all it's all bravado and performance art, and to a certain degree, of course, you have to know the facts and know the law, but there's a certain element of charm and bravado they have to bring there. And then I really enjoyed that setting, and that wasn't going to be something that I could get at a desk job, like I said. So um, yeah, you gotta play to your strengths, and this was something that I kind of just naturally somehow flowed into, and now we're gonna make it a career, hopefully.
Yeah, from my own personal experience of being a part of mock trial, I somehow always get to, I mean, it is a legal podcast, so I'm not surprised I'm talking about mock trial every single episode. But I found great joy in mock trial because, sort of discovering the fact that at the end of the day, the law is very performative and you do need that charm, especially in something such as mock trial. You get points based on how you perform things. I always think about a ton of instances that I've seen people say things that probably first aren't true and are just kind of crazy, but the way they say it is just so wonderful that the judge is
Yeah.
like, wow, this guy is speaking the truth right now. And they'll walk away with the 10 on their opening or their closing statement. I did a closing statement this past semester and it was a very fun experience, but I think it gave me a lot of skills that were very important going forward, just in my personal life in terms of public speaking, like you said. And speaking of those skills, you talked about performance and debating, and are there any other skills that you have seemingly gained through, your experiences, I guess, in the moot court, or any time before that debating that have very much helped you improve as not only as a law student and a potential lawyer, but just as a person?
Okay, are you ready? So I have 5 rules for debate. You want the 5 rules? Are you ready?
Absolutely.
All right. So let's see if I can remember them all. I came up with this in college, and it always served us well. So the first one is no emotion. You shouldn't be arguing your points with emotion as your foundation. You can argue your points emotionally, but your argument shouldn't be based on an emotional appeal. Unless you're in the appeals court, I guess that's a different. In trial, let's say in trial court, let's stay down in the trial. Um, the second rule was no people attacks. Don't attack people. Don't attack organizations. Keep it civil. Keep it uh, structured. The third was to know your argument better than they know their argument. So this is straight preparation. It's straight memorization. I every time that I had to debate in college, the week before that debate, I had all the points that I wanted, and I would find myself driving around for hours in the car practicing different arguments out loud. And I would run through them, and then in my head I would have, the rebuttal, what I would expect the other side to say, and I would try out a new argument, go, oh, that doesn't sound right, and I would try something else out. So preparation is huge. Memorization is what gets you far. Your recall, especially in an appeal setting in the real world, because you have to know the entire record for an entire case, and you've got, depending on the court, 10, 15, 20 minutes in front of an appeals court, and you've got 5, 7, 9 judges. who are asking you questions, and you've got to come up with an answer like that. So your recall has to be on point. So your preparation, your drilling, that's huge. And then the last two, no stats and no numbers, no statistics, because I can give a statistic of some research center, and so can you, and we're going to bicker about whose research is correct, and it's never going to go anywhere. So I always told our kids, don't bring in numbers. Don't say, well, this organization said 90% of people agree. It's nonsense. Don't do it. And so following those rules pretty strictly, we always did pretty well. It's the most objective sort of streamlined debating. So that would be my unsolicited debate advice.
No,
And by the way, I bring that into moot court when we have little general interest meetings at the beginning of the semester, and kids come up to us who might not have who haven't done one of our competitions before, and they'll go, "Do you have any tips?" I'm like, "Yeah, do that. Don't don't go into your negotiation session and start calling the other side names. That's not gonna work."
no, I'm happy to have the Abe Frangie 5 rules of debate live on the Lawyers in the Making podcast. I wrote them down myself. I'll be sure to use them if they ever were to become useful to me one day. Because
We used to call them Honest Abe's 5 honest rules for honest debate. So there you go. You can copyright that one for
there
yourself.
we go. We're coining names as well. I mean, it was already prior coined, so I'm happy we could put a name on it now.
There you
Even
go.
get the callback to Abraham Lincoln. I love the wordplay. But not to switch gears like this, but I have to ask because I always do my due diligence before people come on the podcast, and I saw something very interesting. And like you said before, prior to law school, you did a couple odd jobs, some side goals you were looking for. You were the creative director at the Casal Group. What is that? What were you doing there? I have to know.
So that's a political consultancy firm. It's a great husband and wife team I was very fortunate enough to become friends with and mentors with, and made some friends with them through other friends I met in college. Um, great people. And so they handle candidates from dog catcher all the way up to U.S. Senate and everything in between. So for them, for a while, I was doing uh, lots of photos, and then just some basic kind of behind the scenes campaign stuff like voter outreach and stuff like that, and some other kind of thinking. I don't know what the best way to describe it. Just kind of brainstorming ideas, and uh, and so then that turned into a lot of photography, thinking about ads, digital marketing, stuff like that. So it's a sort of a new way that campaigns have to advertise, and they have to meet the new way of modern marketing. A lot of campaigns are kind of behind the curve on that, and so it's an effort to, when people decide to run for office, even on a small local level, to kind of beef up their social media presence and their digital presence and things like that. So lots of digital tech marketing strategies and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think it seems you took away a lot of valuable experiences from that job. Especially with the digital marketing is something I found has been important, especially in starting a podcast. Because you got to be everything. You got to have everything on everything. So I have a TikTok,
Right.
Instagram, LinkedIn. That might be it. See, I might need more. Look at that.
We'll have to do a consultation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at. And I think it's interesting as well because it doesn't have much to do with the law or debating or anything like that. And I'm glad to see that through your experiences, you're dipping your feet in many different things. And another thing you did, you're the administrative director at the Union Street Counseling Services. What was that? And what were you doing there?
Okay, so that was a psychiatry office. Uh, this is what I did after I graduated college and while I was doing the LSAT and before school. It's a family friend that that owns the business. And I did a little work in college for them, answering phones and stuff. But then during COVID, they needed all their staff kind of, I don't know exactly, but they needed somebody to basically help run the day to day and all the insurance stuff and stuff like that. So I ended up stepping into that role, and that was very interesting. That was a very eye-opening experience for sure. Um, you're helping a population of people that can't always necessarily help themselves, and so it's a very different customer base than I was used to. It small jobs in high school, and like I worked at a bagel shop, I worked at a mini golf place. Like the clientele is very different, it's drastically different. um, so you learn patience, you learn organization, but then of course you got to learn advocacy when I'm on the phone with an insurance carrier and one of the providers is trying to get prior authorization for some nonsense. And oh my goodness, that whole process. So you learn all sorts of skills. And then I got a good crash course in healthcare and how it's administered, which is helpful actually in law because it all sort of interlinks. And I've gone through law school going, oh, so that's why I had to have them fill out that form. Oh, that makes sense. So I think too, and I'll say this, I have some friends in the administration office at the law school, and they tell new kids that want to go to law school, after college, don't apply. Go work for a year. Go work somewhere, do something for a year. Don't go straight into law school, which, first of all, I think says a lot about what it is that you're actually getting out of college, but also you need that real world experience before you go into law school, because you need to be able to reflect on what it is that you're learning, because it's all real world stuff. Right? I went into tax. I had tax my first summer of law school, and there was some business stuff that I had to deal with at the psych office. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, and you're able to draw these parallels that you're otherwise not able to get, and it kind of closes the picture for you. So I think that it's really important to work in a lot of different fields. Like I'm never going to work in healthcare ever again. That was a one-time thing. It was a fluke. I loved working in politics, but I'm probably never going to do that. Maybe on a volunteer basis, but nothing super formal. Um, that's not anything that I'll get to in that level. But I learned a lot, kind of being around those people that do it professionally every day. Um, I had a lot of businesses that I was able to work for, an advertisement company, the bagel shop, an ice cream store, like all these random things in high school. But I learned a lot of stuff from them. And so you're able to take all these experiences. They have nothing to do with law, but uh, they're beneficial overall.
I honestly could not agree more. I worked at ShopRite. I worked in the produce department. And that was honestly very eye-opening experience for me because there was a lot of stuff that I did there that I still do every day here, especially even this podcast. Speaking to customers, helping people out. It's a lot. People are coming up to you, where are the onions? It's like you need to know where everything is. You can't really not know the plan, and I'd walk
Right.
into the back, and each week there'd be a different layout, so I'd kind of have to study it a little bit and be like, well, okay, the apples are over here now. So I think I love what you're saying here because they seem like little things, they seem very insignificant, but I think the fact that you're able to connect those small insignificant moments to the sort of significant parts of your life at law school, in your legal internships, in your clerkships. I think at the end of the day, it kind of shows that, okay, I did learn something. I did take something away from maybe those jobs where I was getting paid, $12 an hour. And especially, connected to my own personal experience, I always love, when I'm reading books, philosophy major, so sorry. So I'm always reading not always reading philosophy, but I try to. I enjoy it. But when I read something and I can connect it to someone else and I could be like, oh yeah, I get why you said that. It kind of shows me that okay, I'm reflecting on things, I'm taking things in, And, I'm actually learning something here and so on and so forth. But we'll move on to your time at Albany Law. Let's talk about the first year. Everyone says it's traumatic. Was it as traumatic for you as everyone says?
Uh, I am in weekly therapy over my first semester. No. You know what? So here's the thing. I started in January of 2021. The law school had just started, I think, the year prior this January start program. So it's a very reduced student base. There was only 33 of us, I think, that started. And our first semester, we were very close. We were all in the same four classes. We had the same schedule. We went through the same orientation. Everybody knew everybody. We were a little family, which is different than if you start in the fall. You start with 200 kids. Nobody knows who you are. You don't know who anybody is. You all have different schedules. There's no continuity. So my first semester in the social aspect was pretty nice because we knew everybody and we were all friends and we would go to lunch and it was fine. Um, the school aspect, yeah, I had no idea what the hell was going on. That was that was something else. So the way that law school classes are structured, it's it's no way like how undergrad is structured. Undergrad is, first of all, they don't care if you show up. Can I digress for a moment? May I be allowed to digress for just a moment? I have an
Absolutely.
undergrad story. Okay. So I have this is my only really good undergrad story. My undergrad experience was rather boring. So after I had finished all of my real classes, and by real classes I mean the classes I had to take for my major and my minor, and I had to then take the fake classes, which were just to fill up the credit allowance and so that I could get my pink slip and leave. I took urban planning, like city planning for cities. And I went to the first class. It was in, as you know, Albany. It has those big giant lecture centers. It was in one of those lecture centers with 200 or 300 other kids. You are a little fish in a massive giant ocean. They don't take attendance. I don't know if they take attendance now, but when I was there, they didn't take attendance. They don't care if you're there, as long as the check clears. They don't care. So I showed up to the first class, and he said to us, I don't take attendance. Your only grade is a paper. You have to write about your hometown and scrutinize the city planning process in your hometown. Bring it on the last day of class and paper and put it down. Go, fine, super. I'm never showing up. I don't even know if I bought the book. I don't even know if there was a book. So again, I'm from a small town just north of Albany called Clifton Park. Uh, and so I wrote my paper, really just a scathing rebuke of the traffic patterns, of the overpopulation. We have a lot of traffic from Saratoga, from the race course, and just the discombobulation that our small town had turned into from all that. And I wrote like a 30-page scathing rebuke of the city planning in the town of Clifton Park. And so I print it out, and it's the last day, and I bring it and I put it on the desk in the lecture center. And I go, oh, I'll stay for this class. Why not? It's the last class. I'll stay for it. I didn't stay for any of the others, so I'll stay for this one. So I sat down, and he starts talking. He goes, so as you all know, for the last 30 some odd years, I've been the city planner for the town of Clifton Park. And I go, oh, no, no. I just wrote 30 some pages just demolishing this man's career. Oh no. Oh no. Rightfully so. I got a D minus in the class, um, which was my lowest grade ever. Somehow I didn't fail, but I did get a D minus, which I'm strangely somewhat proud of that I got a D minus in that class. I don't know why. I can't explain it. It's some narcissistic thing. I don't know why. But anyways, why I tell that story is because law school is absolutely not like that at all. You can't skate by at all. The material is really dense. You're learning an entire area of law in about 2 months. And you're not only learning the current law, you're learning how that section of law started 200, 300 years ago. What, in property, you take property. you learn about like the first land disputes when when whoever came here in whatever year, 16, right? 16, whatever, it's the first land dispute. Somebody had to go to a court, and that's the first case you read. And then the rest of it is the legal precedent for the next 400, 300, 400 years. So there's a ton to it. And if you miss a moment of it, whew, good luck. Best of luck. So it's a totally different game. Like undergrad is a 4 year, you know, if you're not boring like I was totally boring in college. I did nothing fun. But for all the non-boring people, it's a 4 year booze fueled vacation on your parents' dime. That's wonderful. Congratulations. When you go to law school, that's not the case. You're going to be working. You're going to be reading. Um, you know, frequently, my first semester was reading to like 2 a.m. because I was trying to absorb everything. That's not the way to do it. You have to kind of be strategic. But no, first semester was not that bad. It was scary, definitely at the beginning. I hate making friends. I'm not good at it, so that part was scary. But uh, learning the material, you kind of get used to it. There's a rhythm to it, and after a while, you pick up how to take notes and how to outline your classes and things like that.
Yeah, I enjoyed the undergraduate story, I'll be honest. I actually am in very much the same boat. I think I have one class I have to do for my major and minor, and that's it. And I'm a second right now I'm a second semester junior. So, the stuff I think I'm taking college accounting this semester. I'm a philosophy major. But why I'm taking accounting more of a personal, I don't honestly, I don't know. I heard someone say it on a podcast. It's like a good class you could take. I think they were lying to me. But now I get to find out this semester. But I also think it's very interesting how, you sort of get that rhythm and but at the same time, I know a very big thing that I guess mantra of mine is, the only way is through. And it's especially for law school, you can't go over it or go under it or anything like that or try to cut corners. And I think that's important for the audience to hear that, especially the people that aren't in law school yet, is that, you really cannot cut corners. You cannot miss a moment, especially the fact I didn't know that you go all the way back in your legal classes. You go to the first land dispute. And especially, the legal system of this country is all based on precedent. So, if you want to if you want to know why something in 1850 happened, you probably have to go back to 1750 just to see why that happened. And then you got to go back even further and so on and so forth, which maybe I'll find interesting. But I would assume that for a lot of people, that was probably a very, mind-boggling sort of experience. But going forward, you eventually became a legal intern at Brown and Wenrob. Did I say that right?
Wine Rob, and if I don't correct you, then somebody will text me and I'll get scolded. Uh, no, that's a great firm. So that's a lobbying firm. It is, as far as I'm aware, still the premier lobbying firm in the state of New York. And they deserve it. They have some great people over there, and I've been fortunate enough to get to know a lot of them as friends too. So lobbying is a game of its own. Um, it's helpful to have a law degree because on one hand you're looking at what the legislature is about to produce, and very well could be that the governor signs it and that thing comes into law. So having a law degree is helpful because then the law firms and lobby firms, they have clients, and those clients have interests. And so you have to see, all right, well, if this piece of legislation that's coming down the pipe, how is it going to impact my client's goals? How's it going to impact? They might not want to do something in their business right now, but maybe in 10 years. And if this bill comes down and is signed, then they might be precluded from expanding in some other venture 10 years, 20 years down the road. So there's all sorts of this logic to it. It's really interesting work. It's not at all what is described in the movies. It's not what's described in pop culture. Um, I'm sure maybe if you go down to Washington, then there's some tomfoolery. But that's not my experience at all. Um, there's some really good small businesses that are just looking to navigate the behemoth that is the state legislature. And unless you, I've been around the legislature, through college, and I've had friends that work as legislative director, so I'm very comfortable understanding the processes of how it works. But if you're a small business owner, if you're a farmer uh, in New York and you're trying to get something done, uh, and trying to figure out how the legislature works is a full-time job, and so you need some help. So it's an advocacy, government relations and advocacy. It's really really interesting work. There's a lot of problem solving and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed it. I was fortunate enough to be there for 2 semesters last year. But great people, a lot of fun, a lot of good clients to work with, and I really enjoyed it.
So from that, I have to ask, because it seems like you had a very positive experiences or excuse me, experience at the law firm. And what I always like to illuminate on this podcast are the positive experiences you have at certain internships or law clerkships and some negative experiences. So do you have any positive experiences that you can sort of expand on, or any negative experiences in terms of maybe this is something I'd want to do in my future, and maybe this isn't something I'd want to do in my future?
I think positive wise, I definitely think that government relations or something like that is something that's in my future. Maybe not to that scale, but guiding. And I'm ultimately interested in helping businesses start up and grow. I think that's kind of where my legal footing is going. I'm interested in working with companies that need some help navigating formation, and then regulatory things, and helping them grow. It's kind of I have sort of that business background I'd like to keep in, but I also like the government and the politics side of it too. And so you kind of mush all these things together, and that's sort of where it all shakes out. So definitely that would be my good thing, I think, is that I could absolutely see myself somewhere down the road in that sort of a job. Um, but I think bad, can't really think of anything bad. I did gain a lot of weight. There's a lot of snacks at that office, and a lot of peanut M&Ms. I did I did get, don't tell my mom, but I did get a couple of cavities over the year of working there, because every day I would go in, I would get a cup of peanut M&Ms out of the dispenser, and that was my lunch usually. I would have peanut M&Ms. So that would be the bad, is that I was well fed, and they were gracious enough to let me munge on the peanut M&Ms. So other than that, no, I had a wonderful time, and I think that if you're interested in politics, that's a kind of a different route to go than the standard go intern for the legislature route. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's important that you said that, is that it is a different way of looking at the politics of and that's a big interest of a lot of people at UAlbany, obviously. They have one of the, I think, the best political science. The Rockefeller College is probably number one in the state, probably one of the best in the country. And especially the fact that, well, where I currently am right now, the legislature is down the road. So there's so many different opportunities here. And I think that that was sort of a eye-opening experience for me in talking to people, and that there's so many different paths and so many different ways you could go with the law. And just there's like so much. I know I've mentioned before, there's veterinarian lawyers out there who just
Hmm.
deal over animal disputes. And I was like, I was amazed by that, because when you really get into the weeds of it all, there is always a function somewhere for the law. The law is eventually going to step in somewhere, somehow. And I think that's important for people to hear that, even for myself, that there are so many different paths you can go down.
Well, yeah. I mean, I went for counterterrorism, and there's a lot of legal issues inherent in that, in the national security framework. But I'm not going to be practicing in that area of law. I was never on a pre-law track. I poli-sci was my minor, so outside of that, that was really the only tangential connection to law that I had in my undergraduate career. And you can, I mean, there's people who have a business background, they have their MBA before they come to law school. There's people that have a mechanical engineer degree and they go become patent lawyers. And so there's all sorts of things that's totally malleable. You know, if you continue down this law path, you'll have a philosophy degree, which will be great because you'll love law school, and they get to teach you all about theory, and it's all theoretical, and you'll have 3 years of wonderful experiences if you continue down this route, because it's just exactly, you know, if, I'm assuming that you love philosophy. I'm assuming that's why you're staying in philosophy in your junior and senior year, but that's what law school is. So there's a little bit of something for everybody.
Yeah, I think and that last point there, that there's a little bit of something for everybody, is absolutely true. And one of the reasons I made this podcast, because I think in talking to people prior to making it, and kind of exploring and doing some soul searching myself, I kind of saw that there are so many different opportunities and very unique opportunities where even, if you're into sports, and, I unfortunately was not athletically gifted. Um, you can still find your way, being of counsel of an NBA team or an NFL team, or working within the organization in the legal department. Because, every business, every corporation needs a legal department. They need counsel. And it just further shows how expansive the law gets sometimes. There's just so much to it. But Abe, it's your time to shine. Let's move to the Albany Law Moot Court. You are the executive director. This is your plug. Go ahead.
Oh boy. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. I have to tell you a story. So we had a legal secretary. She was our legal secretary for the Moot Court program for like 30 years, and she just retired a couple weeks ago. So I went up in her goodbye event. We had food and stuff. The whole school came over, and I went up and did a little speech. And I go, "Hi everybody, I'm here to talk about Moot Court, but don't worry, I'm not advertising. I'm just thanking our legal secretary for her many decades of help." So apparently, I've gained a reputation around the law school for endlessly advertising the Moot Court program, which I'm fine with. I mean, I don't, at least everybody knows what Moot Court is. So
Listen,
that's fine.
as you should, you know.
Exactly, yeah. So, all right, here's what it is. We have a whole bunch of competitions for our students, and then we put on competitions that we host college students and law students from around the country. For our students in-house, we have negotiations, which we write a simulated problem between two parties who are trying to negotiate something. It's contract disputes, employment, anything like that. I mean, you name it, we've done it. Divorce, custody, whatever it is, at some point it's been done. We have client counseling, which is simulating when you, as the lawyer, are welcoming a new client into your office and they're telling you about their problem for the first time. It's client intake. That's a huge skill, and we focused on those two competitions a lot. Those were our skills competition. Then we have a criminal trial, and the teams will play either the defense or the prosecution. And then we have an appellate trial, so we simulate court of appeals. We write for you what has happened in the trial court, and then you're competing as if you're taking that case to the appeals court for the first time. And then nationally, we host a family law competition, which is another appeals competition, and then a collegiate appeals competition. So we have a lot. We have a lot of competitions over the year, and we run those every year, and it's a big benefit to our students. Albany Law is sort of has a reputation as being a trade law school. There's a huge, heavy focus on practical learning, and the Moot Court program is, that's our football team. If you compete, that's the performance. When we have final rounds, we have a big Moot Courtroom on the fourth floor next to our office, and that's filled with people on our final night. The school comes to watch, and it's two teams. It's their rivals, and they're sparring out over some trial that one of us wrote up over the summer, and so it's really exciting. It helps a lot, and we're very fortunate too because it's good for networking. We have think about it. We have the whole legislature. We have all of the government agencies. We have the executive office. We have a lot of federal agencies, all of the state courthouses, all of the federal courthouses, and they're all 2 miles away from the school, 2, 3 miles. So it's a regular occurrence for us where we have one of the federal judges, or in some cases, a panel of the Supreme Court judges, of the appellate judges, of the Court of Appeals judges, who come up and judge for us. The partners at firms, big associates from big prestigious Albany firms, they come and judge for us. The legislative aides who work in the legal department, they come and judge for us, and they give feedback to our competitors, and it usually looks something like this. What you just did there, I did that 20 years ago. It screwed me over royally. Don't ever do that ever again. And here's what you should do instead. And it's wonderful. It's practical, real world advice. Can I tell you how I got started in this fun thing called moot
Absolutely.
court?
Please do.
That's a good story. All right. So I have a friend at law school. His name is Justin Aragosa.
Shout out, Justin.
And shout out Justin. Very, very smart guy. He works for us on moot court now. So I have a lot of respect for his brain. He's got a big brain, very smart, and I trust his judgment. And I sometimes blindly trust him to the point where last February, I was sitting in the cafeteria of the law school, and he came down and he handed me a piece of paper, and he told me to sign it. And I signed it because I trust him. And I thought, hand to God, I thought it was somebody was running for a position in the student government or something like that, and that you need signatures or whatever. So I go, yeah, whatever. And later that day, we were out at lunch. And I go, Justin, what was that thing that you had me sign this morning? He goes, oh yeah, we are competing in the negotiation competition, and it starts next Tuesday. And I go, oh, that's fun for us. I didn't know that we were doing that. So we competed in that. We ended up winning, and I had to throw that in. So, but that's easily one of my favorite stories of law school because I had really no interest in joining any student group. I didn't join law review. I didn't join any of the clubs. I just didn't do anything. I don't like socializing. I hate it. I hate putting myself out there. And so if he didn't almost sort of forge my signature on that application to compete, who knows what we would have done, because networking is important. And so we're able to bring in all of these talented attorneys and judges to the school. They meet with the competitors, our second and third year law students. And then our first year law students volunteer. They serve as the bailiffs and the jurors. They do all the role playing. So they get to meet with all these judges too. It's a huge network that we build, and it's a very unique experience. There's really no other program at the law school or anything at the law school that is constantly streaming in all of these high profile individuals from the Albany legal community and just presenting them to the student body. Say, yeah, about it. Talk to them, network with them. I've seen it time and time again. Students who go up, they chit chat for a little bit. They go, oh yeah, I'd love to talk with you more over coffee. They go talk with coffee, and then I talk to them 2 months later, and I go, oh yeah, I got an internship in that office. Fantastic. So it just kind of goes to show that you have to put yourself out there. I give a lot of kudos to the competitors that even just start in one of our competitions. That's a pretty big deal, putting yourself out there in one of our competitions. They're a lot of work, and it shows that you're willing to take on a big challenge and that you're organized and you're capable. And you might be nervous, or you might have been improperly enrolled in the competition like I was, but you learn a lot of skills, and it's very I think it's a great experience, and I get to see firsthand every time we do a competition the benefit that it has for our students.
Well, yeah, it seems like, you definitely stumbled upon one of those, sometimes life gives you lemons, make it lemonade. And you certainly have, from that point when your signature was almost forged. Sometimes in life, some things just pop right into your lap and you're like, all right, I guess I'm doing this. And it clearly very much worked out for you. And I think I want to emphasize the point that you made. It's very important to put yourself out there. I myself, I don't know if I'd call myself an introvert. Because, maybe I like talking to people. That's the only thing. But, especially even before, I keep talking about starting the podcast, but yeah, it was a very nerve-wracking experience for me. I'll come out and I'll be honest, I'll come out and say it. It was even posting it on my Instagram. I was like, what are people gonna think about this? How will they view me? But sometimes you just gotta shut the noise off and just do it, and put your foot down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it too like this. When you get into the professional world and you start litigating, so now it's your professional reputation on the line, right? You've got a judge who, uh, you know, you've got to be on your A game for it. You've got to be able to answer the questions, and you've got to answer them now. And you have to have all your papers, and you have to have them now, and you have to be ready to go, right? It's your professional identity. You have to have good working relationship with your opposing counsel, and if you're not even litigating, just in your office. Um, and so, I I give you big props for starting this because I know it takes a lot. It's very easy and very safe to just go. You know what? There's this nice Patrick Star rock. Patrick Star. Let me hide
Absolutely.
under Patrick Star rock, right? And you never come out, and that's it, right? That's the easy way to do it. Uh, the anonymity of it is safe, and there's nothing risky there. And but I think you've got a pretty good gig going here, and that's a good lesson for going forward in law. If that's an area of the law that you want to go into, where you have to put yourself out there and your name out there every day, and you do by virtue of signing your documents for your clients, you're putting your reputation out there too. So it's an interesting professional lesson. Is that if you go into law, your sort of anonymity goes away, but you have to build up your reputation pretty quickly too.
Yeah, and I think even bouncing off that point, I think even for myself, the fact that I am doing this, and even prior, I remember freshman year of college, I didn't get involved on campus at all. Like I didn't join any groups or anything. But sophomore year, one of my friends was like, "Listen, you got to get out there. You got to do something." And even my parents were saying that. I was like, "All right, whatever." I joined mock trial. I joined Phi Alpha Delta, and like, I met a ton of people. They're all my friends today. I all cherish them greatly, and I'm forever grateful for them. And I'm happy that the people that pushed me towards to join those groups, did, because if they didn't, like you said with Moot Court, who knows? And I also think putting your name out there, putting yourself out there, it puts a lot of pressure on yourself as well. Not in a bad way, but more in, you know, uh, even for myself, I want to make sure that I'm putting out the best content. I'm preparing for all my interviews and making sure that I'm making sure my brand that I put out there is reflects very good on myself. Because at the end of the day, we got to have a little pride in ourselves and make sure that we look good on the outside, because it helps. It definitely helps. It has helped me. It has clearly helped you. And it's an amazing thing. So me and Abe both are big advocates. Put yourself out there, go out there
Absolutely,
and do it. But I have
take
to
the risk.
exactly take the risk. Always take the risk, because you never know what's on the other side. But that's the best part of it. Um,
Absolutely.
but I have to ask, I think it was over this summer, for like a week straight, at night, I'd watch like moot court competitions from the past. I don't know, I'm a weird guy. I do weird things. What can I say? I'm sitting there eating my ice cream watching moot court, and my dad walks in, he's like, "What the hell are you doing in here?" Um, But is it similar to that? Because I've watched like the national competition. It's like Harvard and someone else. They'll have like Sonia Sotomayor come up. Is it that sort of thing, or is it different?
So I'll take your question in two parts. The first is it's absolutely not weird that you sit and eat ice cream and watch mock trials. I sit and eat ice cream and watch real trials. They're all over YouTube and they live stream them all the time. And it's like some random criminal case in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, and I'm glued to it. I don't know what's going on, but I'm there for it. So if you've hit that level of law nerd, you're doing just fine. You'll be fine. Don't sweat a thing. Uh, on the second half, is it similar? So yes and no. There's certain formalities that you have to meet. So, for instance, we have the client counseling competition, and this is done all over the place. It's not unique to us. None of them are unique to us. Client counseling is it's very common. There's national competitions for it, and so it's you get graded on your ability to communicate with the client. And for us, our clients are first year students. We write for them sort of their characters background. So, for instance, it might be a single mom, divorced, now has kids, dealing with custody. There's a whole litany of legal issues that are coming down the pipe, and needs to talk to the attorney. So now the attorneys, it's two of our competitors, and they're going to get graded on how well they work together. They're going to get graded on how well they just welcome the client to the table. Do they create a welcoming environment for the table? Um, do they bring tissues? Sometimes I don't know if we give bonus points for if they bring tissues or not. I should probably know that, but I don't know that. So there are some of those things like how you proceed and how you style your questions. Obviously, you don't want to. Why are you here? What do you need? You're trying to create a welcoming environment. You get graded on that. For some of um, the appeals trials that we do, you're following the way that solicitor generals go to the Supreme Court and argue, on behalf of or in defense of their state. And you get up there, right? You have your binder, you put it on the podium, you take a 2-second pause, and it's super awkward because I can tell who's been trained and who hasn't. And it's kind of funny to watch. You put your binder up on the podium and you look up, and Mr. Chief Justice, Associate Justices, and may it please the court. Right, those are the formalities, and those are always kind of fun. I always chuckle at those. I don't know why. I think it's kind of funny, but I think it's obviously that's what happens in real life. So it's an important tradition to keep. It's a sign of respect for one of the higher courts, of course. And then you get going and you start doing your argument. So we do have those sort of formalities that mimic the real world. To my knowledge, we have not had any Supreme Court justices grace us with their presence. We do have an alum who ended up on the Supreme Court about 100 years ago, but I don't know if I could get him these days to come judge for us. I'm not sure if he's available. So, but we do have the federal court judges. Judge D'Agostino comes pretty much every year to our appellate trial. And the magistrate judges are gracious enough to come. Judge Stewart, Judge Hummel, and Judge Nardacci, who I got to work for over the summer. She hasn't had any spots in her calendar yet. She's very busy starting her court, which is totally understandable. But I've asked her, and she said she will come, so I know she'll come in the future. But I can't blame her. She's starting a federal court, so we'll cut her some slack. But she was great to work for this summer. And then of course the Court of Appeals judges for the state, and then we get some Court of Claims judges, a lot of Supreme Court judges, which is in New York. That's our trial level, because we like to do everything nonsensical here in New York. It just makes everything easier for everyone. And a lot of family court judges. So they all have various backgrounds all over the place, and they bring those backgrounds to us, and so they bring some formality with them.
Yeah, I actually can speak to the the New York courts being as backwards as possible. This past summer, I worked at my DA's office, and the my boss was basically explaining to me the court system because I had to look through some legal stuff because it was, it was my first time. And I was like, so the Supreme Court goes on top. He's like, no, it goes at the bottom. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, the district court is the highest. Then goes the Court of Appeals, then it's the Supreme Court, and I'm like, why did they? He's like, listen, don't ask me. I have no idea. So it definitely confused me. It took a little bit to get used to that. But going back to an earlier point, you're talking about the tissues. Bringing that to the table. I'm a lover of intricacies. I don't know why. I like the little things that make things so much better, especially in mock trial. That's a very crucial thing. Like you said in moot court, like those little things that you do are all a part of the collective big show you put on, and they're just as important. Just as we were talking about before, that your experiences at the ice cream shop and my experiences at the shop at ShopRite are significant, in our careers still today. Because those insignificant moments, those skills that you gain, they follow you, and they're still within you. I remember in doing mock trial, it was last year, it was at the regional competition. I was cross-examining a crying witness, and she started like crying, and she didn't have tissues, and she's like, "Oh, can I get a tissue?" And I was like, and her co-counsel had one, or not her co-counsel, one of the counselors on the other side had one, and I was like, "No, no, I could go get it." And I got the tissues for her, and I brought it, and like the judge was loving it. I got a 10 for that, and he really, really, so just like those little things like that are so, so important with everything. And that goes back to preparation. Just being able to work on your feet like that, I love it. I don't know why. I appreciate the little things. But sort of switching gears here. Let's get a little personal with Abe. So I've asked this question in the last couple episodes. I always say it's a weird question. I don't think it's a weird question. Um, but what are the sort of things that you consume on a day, not food? What are the sort of things you consume on a daily basis? So like social media, what are you reading every day? Just, what are sort of the things that you read that are crossing the transom of your mind every day?
What am I reading? Okay, so I hate social media, which is hysterical considering that I did marketing. I hate it. I think it's totally destructive. I try to stay away from it as much as possible. Admittedly, when I'm bored, I will go on to something and I will look at woodworking. I like woodworking. I'll look at hiking, camping stuff, skiing stuff, a lot of outdoors stuff, lots of GoPro videos. Those are really cool. Those sorts of stuff. I try to make my social media usage as constructive as possible because I find it totally detestable. But inevitably, somebody sends me something that I have to go watch, and so then I get dragged into a rabbit hole. And suddenly, oh, there's a baking video. And I'm like, oh, all right, so I'll watch that. Reading, I don't read for leisure all that much. I have a very hard time reading. I got a little touch of the dyslexia. I went for dyslexia testing a few years ago, and I was doing whatever the diagnosis test or whatever it is, and the guy stopped me. He's like, "Stop! You read at a fifth grade level." I'm like, okay, well, that's not good because I'm about to go into law school, so we should figure that out because I don't know how that's gonna work. I don't know if you know what law school is, but they make you read and they make you read a lot. So it that drains me a little bit to read through the case books and because you get about 100 pages every couple of days to read through. There's a good amount of material, and I have to take my time with it because otherwise, I can read a whole page and I skip the whole page. I've read it, but I have no idea what I just read. So it gets a little draining. I don't really read for leisure as much as I'd like to.
Yeah, I love the woodworking and the outdoors. That's the sort of that's the sort of response I wanted because it gives a little peek into what's going on in Abe's personal life. I always see the guy who brings his kids to go camping. You ever see that guy? I know
Yeah,
he's recently really just started really getting popular. I always see that like on my Instagram and stuff. So I always watch those
yeah.
videos. They're fun. I enjoy it. But I agree with the social media stuff. I mean, there's been many times I've catched myself just, going watching and watching. And it's like I even got to tell it's like Nate, take your finger off the screen, man. Just turn it off.
Yeah,
I'm a big deleter of apps. Like if I feel like
me
I'm on
too.
something, I'm just like delete it. I'm like that's it.
Yep.
Like and like you said, like someone will send something to me, and then I won't even get to what they sent to me. Like I'll just be scrolling through. I'm like, why am I even on here? So that always happens.
Yeah.
So, second to last question here. You're doing your moot court, you're going to law school, you got your internships, but what is an ideal Sunday morning or Friday night look for you?
Uh, sleep, sleep is the answer. That's not a good answer, but that's the honest answer. I don't really go out. I don't like going out. But I just like to stay in, watch a movie, um, maybe make some dinner, or maybe go see a couple of friends who aren't doing anything loud or rambunctious. But nothing too crazy, just relaxing. A lot of time, I honestly spend a lot of my Fridays and my weekends prepping moot court stuff. 'Cause it's like a small part-time, full-time job, and those are my only quiet times. So a lot of my weekends get spent prepping for the next week, but that's all right. It's worth it. It's good. It keeps my brain moving. So
Absolutely. And don't worry, I love the simplicity. There's nothing wrong with simplicity. Listen, I know a lot of people who love their sleep. You clearly do. And there's nothing wrong with it. But here we go. Final question. Every episode at the end, I always ask, what are your words of wisdom for the law students, the legal professionals, even or and the aspiring, especially the aspiring law students, but the law students, even legal professionals. What are your words of wisdom for them?
I think that law school helps you think critically. I think that it's a tremendous service, even if you don't end up practicing law. If you want to go into business, if you want to manage something, it provides you with a framework, with a background that you really don't get anywhere else. And I mean, I don't work for the school or anything. I don't. This is an honest opinion. I think that there's a a big benefit to going through law school, um, and seeing and understanding how different processes that you have to deal with every day have come to be. Why it is that you have to have car insurance, right? That's you hate probably every year you have to do some registration or something. Well, in some class in torts, you'll learn how liability works. You'll learn how negligence works, right? You'll learn how defects in cars, and so you'll learn about all these things. And you go, oh, that's why I have to do that, and you have all these aha moments, and everything. Unfortunately, the great thing about the U.S. is we are extremely litigious. We like suing, and so there's lots of precedent. There's lots of things to read. There's lots of cases. There's lots to understand about why a process in the public arena is the way it is, and law school shed the light on that. So I say, go to law school. You'll learn a lot, and it'll make you a better professional on the other side.
Well, Abe, I couldn't agree more. And that's the pod. Thank you so much for coming on. And for everyone out there listening, thank you for tuning in. And I will see you in the next one.